is it Osama bin Laden? Is it Mullah Omar? And he said, please, just be respectful. And off he went, and a few minutes later, there was a knock on my door. Although I was the prisoner, I had the key, and I opened the door, and there, standing in front of me, was a man who made my blood run cold. I had avoided talking about religion for 6 days, and there stood a religious cleric. And he had on an immaculate ivory gown which went right down to the floor. The Taliban's clothes were all above their ankles. You couldn't see this man's feet. He had a big ivory turban, a very light brown beard, and light brown eyes, and he had beads that he was moving to at a time, and he had a very serene smile on his face. And there was something else about him that really freaked me out. I'd never seen this before, and it really worried me. And when I told my first Muslim audience, when I got back to London, somebody went, Alhamdulillah, because what I saw in this man's face was a light, but the light wasn't shining on him. It was shining out of him. And it was really, to me, it was freaky and spooky. I'd never, what is this light on his face that's shining out? And of course, I now know that to be what we call the nur, the natural light that emanates from somebody who is very pious and practicing. But I didn't know what it was. It just freaked me out. And I stood back, and this man just glided in. He didn't even walk. He just seemed to glide on casters. And he sat down, and I sat opposite him. Hamid translated, and he said, what religion are you? And I thought, oh, here we go. I said, I'm a Christian. And he said, yes, but what sort of Christian? Are you a Roman Catholic? Are you a Protestant? I said, I'm a Protestant, I'm from the Church of England. And he said, and what do you think of Islam? In truth, I knew hardly anything about Islam, other than what I'd read, and what I did know was probably factually incorrect anyway. And he said, so what do you think of Islam? Oh, I said, it's fantastic, it's absolutely wonderful, it's an amazing faith. And I went off for 2 minutes in praise of this faith that I knew nothing about. And he sat there silently moving his beads, and when I finished, he said, Islam is a beautiful religion. I jumped in again. I couldn't agree with you more. And again I went racing off in praise of this faith. And at the end of it, I said, do you know what? The people around here are so in love with their religion. They pray 5 times a day. Imagine that. 5 times a day. I had no idea that the 5 prayers were obligatory. He must have thought, you stupid woman, but he was far too polite to say that. So after I'd said all these praiseworthy things about Islam, he said, so you would like to convert? I thought he's trapped me. If I say, yes, I'll convert, give me the book to sign or whatever it is that's done, I'll do it. If I say, yes, I'll sign up, he'll say, you fickle and insincere woman, take her away and have her stoned. If I say, no, I'm not interested in converting to Islam, he'll be furious and he'll say, take her away and have her stoned. So in the end, I sat there for what seemed a long, long time, and then I said, thank you for your kind offer, but I can't make such a life-changing decision just now, not while I'm in prison. But if you let me go, I promise I will read the Quran and study Islam. And he smiled, and he got up and he glided out. He didn't say anything else. And a few minutes later, Hamid returned, and he said to me, you're going home on a red crescent plane. Well, I punched the air and congratulated myself for having been so clever in my dealings with this imam, and I was really happy. A few minutes later, I was on a truck bound for Kabul. Sadly, there was no red crescent plane. Instead, I was thrown into prison. And my cellmates were 6 6 charity workers who had been charged with trying to convert Muslims to Christianity. And they all spoke English. One was Australian, 2 were American, 3 were German. And as I got into this dreadful cell, everything that you can imagine a prison cell in Afghanistan to be, I started to cry and I said, well, these guys have finally broken me. I'm now deeper into Afghanistan. I'm just not going to get out of this place. And I started to cry. And like any nicotine addict in a tight spot, I went to get my cigarettes out and said, does anybody mind if I smoke? And they all said, yes, this is a no-smoking cell. And I thought, what sort of Christians are these? They can see how distressed I am, and how do I find the only no-smoking cell in Asia? One of them said, look, if you need to smoke, you can go outside, but we're about to have a meeting. And I said, a meeting? And they said, yes, we have 2 meetings a day. And I'm looking around thinking, what do they have to discuss twice a day? They must be the escape committee. And I'm looking round for the fire that moves to the side, you know, where they go and dig the tunnel. And I'm looking for any clues. And I said, can I sit in on this meeting? And they said, yes. So I lost interest in my cigarettes at this point and sat on the edge of this rickety bunk bed. And 6 of them sat in a circle on the floor. And then they pulled out their Bibles. And I'm thinking, I don't believe this. They've been charged with trying to convert Muslims to Christianity. They could face the death penalty. And they're still practicing their faith. Any minute now, the Taliban are going to come rushing in and start beating them up. And it'll be collective responsibility. And I'll be dragged in on this. And I'm sitting there like this. What I was to discover later, when I did start reading the Quran, is that the Quran says that people of the book, i.e. Jews and Christians, must be protected, must be allowed to practice their own faith. And although they'd got into this situation, the Taliban were allowing them to keep their Bibles and practice their faith. And they read their Bibles for about 20 minutes. Then after that, they started and passed small pieces of paper round, and they started singing. And it wasn't the sombre Victorian hymns that I've been used to singing in the choir. This was full-on, in-your-face, Southern Baptist style, hallelujah type singing. And at that point, I went out and smoked 3 cigarettes off the trot. Just then the azan, the call to prayer, started, and I'm standing there. I felt as though I was caught in an Andy Warhol movie. I thought, I've got Christian fanatics on the inside, Muslim fanatics on that side. I can't, believe that I'm in this situation. I have to say, although I make gentle fun of the girls, we have kept in touch, and their ordeal lasted much, much longer than mine, and their faith definitely got them through their situation. And as I say, we still do keep in touch. But it was interesting that they were allowed to continue, as I say, practicing their faith, a brand of Christianity which was nothing like I had been used to in my village church in County Durham. There are many, many more tales, but the clock is against us. But a few days after that incident, getting into Kabul, I was driven down to the border, even after the war had started, and I was handed over to the Pakistan authorities and went back to London. While they held on to other Westerners, they had chosen to let me go. And when I got back to London, I thought, I'm going to start reading this Quran. For 2 reasons. One, I've given my word. And I think if you give your word to something and to somebody, then you should try and fulfill it. Secondly, as a journalist covering the Middle East and Asia, It was shocking. I knew so little